Welcome to the Big World Made Small podcast for the adventure traveler. I'm thrilled you're here. My name is Jason Elkins, and in addition to being your host, I'm also a former U.S. Army paratrooper, third-generation commercial hot air balloon pilot, paramotor pilot, ex-Montana fly fishing guide, advanced open water scuba diver, and a full-time nomad that's visited more than 30 countries on 6 continents. As a seasoned adventure travel expert with a passion for creating and sharing meaningful experiences, I'm on a quest to impact the lives of adventure travelers, the tour operators they rely on, and the communities that host them. Every week, I bring you exclusive interviews with fascinating adventure tourism experts who have agreed to share their personal stories, favorite destinations, and some invaluable travel insights they've picked up along the way. We'll enjoy a casual conversation, create some connections, and likely share some laughs. It's my hope that by the end of each episode, this big world will feel just a bit smaller. Let's get started, shall we? Great. Henry, so happy to have you here. Everybody listening, this is Henry Sisa from Adventure Journeys in Ecuador. Super excited to have him on the show. Spoke with him a little bit earlier about just the diversity of Ecuador, and we thought, geez, we could probably do 3 or 4 episodes just on Ecuador because of the biodiversity and all the different things to do there. So anyway, Henry, welcome to the show. So happy to have you here.
Oh, thank you. We're so happy to be here. And of course, now, being a beautiful morning in Quito, and a very early start doing some adventure things. So I'm very happy to.
Great. Henry, so happy to have you here. Everybody listening, this is Henry Sisa from Adventure Journeys in Ecuador. Super excited to have him on the show. Spoke with him a little bit earlier about just the diversity of Ecuador, and we thought, geez, we could probably do 3 or 4 episodes just on Ecuador because of the biodiversity and all the different things to do there. So anyway, Henry, welcome to the show. So happy to have you here.
Oh, thank you. We're so happy to be here. And of course, now, being a beautiful morning in Quito, and a very early start doing some adventure things. So I'm very happy to join you, and all of the listeners also to share my story, in the adventure travel in not only Ecuador, I would say South America a little bit. I was doing in multiple countries, guiding. That's the beginning of all of this dream called Adventure Journeys now.
Yeah, and you've really done something. I believe you had mentioned that you've been doing this, how long? About 15 years or?
Yeah, close. I did start my life as a guide, and I did close to 13 years before I stopped. And of course, start my own business, which is Adventure Journeys, back in 2012. So yes, I did multiple countries in Latin America. However, Ecuador is my home country. I spend the most time over here, and we're mostly focusing on Ecuador, all of the adventures that we offer to our clients. And yes, I did everywhere in Ecuador, including the Galapagos Islands. And actually, my story started as Amazon naturalist guide in few lodges over there. That's how it all started.
I'm curious. When I do the math, and I'm sitting here looking at you, for those people listening, I'm actually looking at you on the screen here. And you mentioned all these years, and I think you must have started about when you were 12. Is that about right? Or how old were you when you started dating?
I'm 20. I'm right now a 42-year-old. I started. Okay. I was, in my early 20s.
All right. Well, you must be living the good life. All this exercise. You actually mentioned, you touched on it briefly. You said this morning with some adventure activities. And before we jumped on this call, you were mentioning what exactly you're out doing. So and I thought, wow, what a great morning routine. So tell us a little bit more, what's your, I don't know what your typical day is like, but what you told me about this morning was pretty cool. So share that.
Yeah, well, this morning is very exciting for me. I met some friends on the weekend, and they're both guides. They're actually working, we're colleagues, Mm-hmm. And we went to hit the trail and trying to kind of open a new trekking. The name of the trekking is Agua y Vida, which means water in life. And this is very close to a very beautiful resort. We normally lodge our clients there. It's called Papayacta with crystal clear hot springs. However, it's behind one of our national parks. It's only about an hour drive. And it was around, let's say, 13 keys, which would be around 8.5 miles. Would be nice. Of course, we did it a little bit of running, but yes, with guests, it would be around 4.5 hours. Beautiful, up in the mountains in the Andes, surrounded by lakes, and of course, we saw some deers, we saw some rabbits, we saw some nice, hawks. I love bird watching actually myself, so I put my binoculars. We were expecting spectacled bear, which is right now quite common in Ecuador, and in that area it's quite also common to see it. But yes, the idea was to kind of like open a new trail for our guests, to offer in our adventures around this, a resort of hot springs. There are multiple things you can do: bird watching, trekking, biking, and of course relaxing it's amazing. It's very nice. So of course, early in the morning, 5 o'clock, I was picked up. It's still dark in Ecuador. Every day starts at 6 a.m. with lights, and it gets dark at 7 p.m. because we are by the equator line. This is very interesting for all of the listeners. We don't have seasons. Different to you have very marked seasons. We only have 6 rains with a little bit more. 6 months with a little more rain than the other 6 months. So we only have summer and winter, but it never is going to snow. But yes, we are on the equator. So 6 o'clock a.m. is always daylight.
It's so interesting for someone like myself that grew up in the Northern Hemisphere, quite far into the Northern Hemisphere, actually. And so we have very clear, winter, spring, summer, fall. And I've spent a lot of time in Latin America. And the closer you get to the equator, I notice in my conversations, the harder it is for people to understand this concept of spring. Or, I'll mention that my son is going to visit me on his spring break. And they're like, when is that? Like, no clue. So it's pretty cool, but it's also wonderful to live in that climate. So that's, I appreciate that. You also mentioned that you did a cold water plunge this morning.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. It is like a guide ritual, and when you do your license to be a guide in Cotopaxi National Park, which is one of the most visited national park in Ecuador mainland, because it's only around 60 kilometers, which will be around 45 miles from Quito, an hour drive. Everyone visits that because you have this beautiful, snow-covered volcano, which is actually at the moment is active. It's close to do the summit. So there is a lake there, and every guide has to go into the lake at 4,000 meters above sea level. Is a ritual. If you want to become a guide, so then you have to swim. So it's like when you are in these kind of like cold temperatures, and then you want to feel the cold temperature of the water. I may have believed it was close to 6 degrees Celsius. The temperature. So it was cold, and that was very nice, refreshing after a kind of like 2.5, 3 hour hike.
I listen to a lot of podcasts, and the cold plunge thing is pretty popular right now for getting your dopamine levels up in the morning. And they suggest that you start your morning with like a real cold ice shower, or an ice bath or something like that. So I can appreciate how you got that feeling right afterwards. It's just like, okay, I'm ready.
It's amazing. I feel very, very fresh. And it was also a waterfall there. So it was like the combination of a nice waterfall in front of you, and then you can jump in. That was just, it was crazy. We knew we were going to do it. We just did it.
That sounds so much nicer than just a cold shower. That's what I did this morning. I did a cold shower, but I'm in Arizona. The water doesn't get that cold here ever. So anyway, I want to go back to, we touched on it a little bit, kind of your journey. Just kind of walk us through that. Like, how did you decide to get into this business? Was it accidental? Was it very intentional? What did that look like from when you started deciding to do this? And tell us a few things about what it took to get you from there to here.
Well, first of all, I my passion is guiding, so I try to at least do once a year, and maybe to the Galapagos or maybe to the Amazon, with people that like to do kind of like special interest, maybe herpetologists, bird watchers, or anyone who is based on nature, the Amazon especially. because in the Galapagos, wildlife is just there, which is incredible. It's like if you've never done any degree on biology, you have to go and take a week at the Galapagos, and maybe you will understand much clear what Charles Darwin meant, with his book of the theory of the species, which is it changed the world, which in my opinion is incredible. Even when I bring my kids to the Galapagos, it's just like it's amazing the amount of wildlife it is there, and then you can see how it was shaped by nature, this wildlife. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I that's my passion, guiding, and I started as a guide in the Amazon as naturalist, and then I did Ecuador. Then I had the opportunity to join and do the Galapagos Islands on a cruise. I did later a little bit of the Galapagos, and then I had the opportunity. I was working for a Canadian, a company which is worldwide, and then they give me the opportunity to do other areas in Latin America as well. So I did Venezuela, Colombia, Peru, Bolivia, and then through the years. You get all of this info and all of these experiences, and you get so much in love of the places you go. And so I started in 2008 with my first, I would say, entrepreneur, project. So with 3 colleagues, I built up a lodge, which is actually working still in the Amazon. His name is Itamati Eco Lodge. I'm not longer part. One of my friends is. And then that was our first project. It took a while, but it was exactly because I fall in love so much of the Amazon. If you ask me, the Amazon is very special, and that's far. And then, looking for new trips that it will be actually delivering unique experiences to our clients and taking off the beaten path trail. I went, in Yasuni National Park in the Amazon of Ecuador, one of the most diverse national parks on earth. And the one that it continues to discover new species and maybe new species in flora and fauna are reported to the world on yearly basis. And it was one of our treasures. So I started to offer some kayaking trips down the Yasuni National Park, camping along the river. And with this trip, I fallen very much in love, and I said, we have to put it onto people's. And it's very interesting now that I can say we are quite a few years in business, more than 10 years, in business as adventure journeys. It's the trip that it gets sold the most little. So we are full of Galapagos trips, we're full of Ecuador trips, and and it's hard. It's very interesting because these trips that it was the idea of building the adventure journeys, they are not that much sold in yearly basis. I think we have maybe 6 to 7 departures a year, while we maybe have more than 40 departures to the Galapagos. Actually, even more because we're in the Galapagos active on weekly basis. So it would be like more than 50, departures to the Galapagos.
I'm curious why you think that is. I mean, I have some ideas rolling around in my head. I've been working in this industry for quite a while, but I'm curious, why do you think it is that the trip you sound like you're very excited. I don't know if I want to say you're most excited about. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the trip that you're most excited about is not as popular. So what do you think that is?
I think it's because of the remoteness, and there is no such an infrastructure. So we will continue to have to sleep on communities of the Waorani, a group of people in Ecuador. And if you kind of like dig into the Waorani, there's few books being written about them, many documentals or documentaries done on them, because the Waorani is one of the last contacted, and part of the branch of the Waorani called Taromenane are still living as nomadic people. They are still uncontacted in Ecuador, in Yasuni National Park. So because of that, and because Ecuador also protects all of this, these areas are very remote. So there's no infrastructure as hotels. To reach there, we have 2 ways: by boat, maybe for a few hours, or by flight, but the flight needs to be chartered. So it's also not a place which is very economic, in terms like other areas that you can discover the Amazon, such as ecologists. And that's why we have had, like, only for people that know what is the Yasuni National Park and the Guarani territory. And right now I'm doing an incredible speech about that. So maybe the listeners,
you're excited, and that's
will hear my excitement. And it's a place where I just went at the beginning of this year with 3 guys again, just to take a look where we're gonna go. And we were only for one night, and we saw maybe, I don't know if you use meters, but if you use feet, I would say maybe a 21 feet anaconda. Only getting there and back, and
maybe that's why it's not so popular.
when you see anacondas in the Amazon, it's because
that's really cool.
The forest, or actually it's very healthy. It's, when you see all this, I'm mentioning it because it is one of the number one requirements for the wildlife, lovers, anacondas, harpy eagle, jaguars, and caimans, all of these flocks of colorful, parrots and macaws, toucans. Well, everything is possible there. It's like it's incredible.
Yeah, well, I can sense your excitement about it. Makes me want to go, and I was curious about it because typically myself, and I think probably a lot of people listening to this, are already kind of familiar. They have a picture in their head of what the Galapagos is like. They might have a picture in their head of what the Andes might be, the cloud forests around in Ecuador. But what you're describing is something that very few people, I believe, have really experienced. So I heard you say that you stay with, was it the Wanani?
Guarani. The people called Guarani, they were contacted only in the 1960s by the missionaries. And then we prefer to leave them live on their own. They have contact with the Western society and Western world. So we have brought, a few schools to small communities. There's around 3,000 of them living inside of Yasuni National Park. But they are, of course, to see the people, these people is very special because they don't have, the timetable that we have. Like, I'm 42-year-old and that I can prove it. You ask them, they don't know.
Yeah.
They measure maybe the time because of the cotton season and the kapok tree, which is among the largest in the Amazon. And of course, there is a nesting harpy eagle, one of the most, powerful eagles on the earth. And that is a very precious, like, sacred for them. And of course, it provides cotton that they use for hunting. So of course, they measure, it's another cotton season. So I have maybe 45 cotton seasons or something like this. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's incredible.
So when your clients travel out there with you, what does that look like? Because I heard, not a lot of infrastructure, and thought I heard you say you were staying with the local people in the area. So what is that? Because that just sounds fascinating to me.
Fascinated, yes. We stay, the communities, when we're talking about communities, maybe it's only 40 people, or maybe sometimes it's even 15 people. It's one family only here, and there's only maybe one house. Their houses are this typical, palm leaf done, from top to bottom on a roof, and there's one part open, and the other part there's a door. They sleep on hammocks, and of course they continue to go hunting in that area only for their own kind of like sources of meat. And then you get to live with them. And of course, we have built up kind of like platforms where we put some tents, mattress, and of course, we give beautiful service over there. We make, showers, of course, our showers, disposable showers. We do dry toilets that we can use there. And then, of course, we do camping, and then we stay in a very ecologist, which has been built by another community for 2 nights. And the other 2 nights we stay with local people. And of course, being with these local people, the guys that, they prefer to go in the jungle without clothing, because that's the easiest way. And they actually, because now they use clothing when they see us. But when they want to go in the jungle, they don't use clothing. They don't like it. Not even rubber boots, they prefer to go barefoot. And it's incredible. And that's... unique.
You said it was easier. I'm wondering if there's something that I wouldn't think of that would be the benefit. I mean, other than maybe if they're barefoot, maybe they're a little quieter. I mean, are you able to ascertain what are the benefits behind that, or is it's just more comfortable, or
No,
what does
it's
it look like?
more comfortable for them because that's how they were raised. And barefoot even better because they are adapted to it, even though there is ants and everything that will be scary. And that's why we provide rubber boots and, of course, muddy trails and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
But when you're doing, let's say, what are their daily activities, which will mean that they have to go and get food for them, and that will mean to make some traps, maybe to hunt. So, of course, we're very noisy with the rubber boots and with all of our Gore-Tex and ponchos and all of that, right? So animals are smart. They're not going to be noisy. So, of course, they prefer to be.
So
they disappear running in the forest. It's incredible.
So if these guys, I don't want to make any assumptions, but will they take you and the guests out on excursions?
Yeah, we go walking with them. We go.
And do they just kind of roll their eyes the whole time because you guys are so noisy? Is it?
No. Because actually, they are now. I'm saying that they are now they are welcoming tourism, and they are super kind of like I would say excited, and they want more tourists to come. And there are areas where we have some trails. We go to clay lakes. A clay lake is no more than an area which it has exposed some minerals, and there's high concentration of animals coming at the same time. Normally parrots, you see some documents about hyacinth, macaw, this blue kind of like show in Brazil, in Peru as well. So we do have similar of that, but it's not only for parrots. There's all types of animals coming, monkeys, wild pigs, everything is coming. So of course, predators also come. So we know those areas. And of course, in that area, you always find wildlife such as monkeys, wild pigs, and stuff like this. So it's normally to talk about how the Amazon it is. What is it? It's kind of like it's normal life in the Amazon, and of course about the medicine they use from the plants, what type of plants they use for making their hammocks. So you have both learning, and of course you meet animals on the way. So it's like discovering wildlife plus understanding how the Amazon work and how is their daily lives. It's fantastic to walk with them.
Yeah, no, it sounds amazing. How long does that trip typically run?
I recommend regularly in between 4 nights is at least there, because there's one day, it's same to the Galapagos. There's one day and back, which is kind of like traveling day. So we do 4 nights, 3 nights still good. But 4 nights, very, very good recommendation to have a nice, you will see a lot of wildlife, and you will see the real deep Amazon,
Great. We talked a little bit about seasons, kind of that winter and summer thing. Is there a particular time of year that trip is best?
Depending
and that type of thing.
Depending, and that's a great question. The Amazon rainforest, it's shared by 9 countries in Latin America, or in South America, I would say. Ecuador only holds around 2% of the Amazon, but because our close distance from the Andes, we have different ecological floors. So, for example, in the Amazon of Ecuador is always thick and high concentration of diversity. The Amazon in Brazil, there is a kind of like savanna. You can go on a jeep, like a safari. You can go on a jeep on roads and find the animals. Over here, no, it's very thick. You have to move through water. So July, August, in between July and November is a great time. I would say September, October, November is a great time, because somehow it's a dry season in some of the areas. And of course, with rivers going drier, what the animals have to do, come
move into the water.
And most animals, no hiking, it's from the water. That's why we do hiking.
We do the same concept in Africa or other places, where it's you want to be there when the animals are concentrated to make it a little easier to find them. So it sounds like if somebody wants to do this trip, they better be good with sitting in a canoe of some sort.
Because
camping.
The Amazon have very microclimates. For example, rainy season in one part of the Amazon might be a dry season in another part of the Amazon. So there's more than 100 microclimates within the Amazon rainforest itself. The closer you are to the mountains, it's going to be cloud forest all the time. Still considered Amazon, like the upper Amazon, we call it. And where we do whitewater rafting and stuff like that, it's still the Amazon. It's the upper Amazon. That's a different area. If you go by July in that area, it's all raining, while in the area I'm telling you is dry. So what I'm saying is that it depends. So in the Amazon, we don't organize, by season. It's all year long. It's not like in the rainy seasons you're going to have pouring rain for 2 days. No, the rain is regularly between 1.5 hours, sometimes 30 minutes heavy, and then sunny again. So it's actually very beautiful. Yeah. It's warm all year long. Rain is actually warm.
Yeah. Well, down there. I'll actually be in Colombia next week. It's one of my favorite places on earth. So I'll have to jump down and see you. It's interesting. What I hear basically is you guys have stuff to do year round, which is great as a tour operator, right? Because I'm also speaking with tour operators in Canada or, Southern Patagonia, and they've got that very, very short season, which makes it a challenge for people that are planning trips. Because, if people have a regular job, they've got their vacation whenever they've got their vacation. And oftentimes it's like, well, when is a good time to go? I've got vacation in March, for example, but, I want to go to Patagonia. Well, is that a good time to go? And that could present challenges. But it sounds like if somebody, pretty much regardless of when their vacation is, could reach out to you guys and probably put together a pretty cool trip.
Absolutely. Look, for Ecuador, as I said at the beginning, Quito, the capital, where actually is in my background, located at 2,800 meters above sea level, which will be close to 9,000 feet, considered the second highest capital. We are in the middle of the Andes, but we are on the equator. So take away the Andes, and it should be all like Africa. All jungles like the Amazon and everything will be very hot because we are on the equator, which provide us, it should be just always warm. But because we have these beautiful shaped, ranges of called Andes, the Andean chain, we have snow-covered volcanoes permanent. Actually, we have Chimborazo volcano, considered the farthest point, of Earth from the middle of the world. I'm not talking about Everest, which is the real peak that, it's measured above sea level, which is normal and everyone knows. But what I'm trying to say that we had that fact in 2019 as Chimborazo being the farthest place or the farthest point from the Earth, because being on the equator and being, kind of like shrink on both poles, actually Kilimanjaro and Chimborazo is the two peaks that stands, the most out if you will be having a picture of the globe, from the universe. So what I'm trying to say is that we have these very unique things. Actually, we have another snow-covered volcano called Cayambe, where I was hiking this morning, which is the only place on Earth which the equator line goes through snow. You can go all over the 30, I think it's around 36, 38 countries around through the air on the equator line. Everywhere is flat and, of course, tropical. The only place is the Andes of Ecuador, and the only place on Earth we have actually a sign is on snow all year long in Cayambe volcano, which is incredible as well. And for the climate, that's fantastic as well, being on the middle of, on the equator and still climbing snow-covered volcanoes. So because of that, yes.
You mentioned that one is active right now, right? So that's not something you didn't climb in.
That is Cotopaxi.
Okay.
Cotopaxi is active. It went active around a year ago. And it's been, it's a volcano. In Ecuador, we have 21 volcanoes active. So activity of volcanoes for us is normal, right? So it's like, it's not a problem. But
it's anyway, like the weather. It's the weather up north. It changes up here. Yeah. Exactly. I gotcha. So do you guys offer, do you work with climbers to summit these volcanoes? Yeah.
Adventure journey, all type of venture tours, either technical and non-technical, or even families that they want to do adventures. Right now, the world adventure right now, it's kind of like such a big, and it's reaching all types of kind of like needs and markets, because we also do with seniors adventures, but we're not hiking for 10 hours or 4 hours. We're hiking for 1 hour and making a picnic in the middle of nowhere by Cotopaxi volcano, looking at it. That's also an adventure, or maybe doing a visiting of a local community and practicing how they do the hot sauce or a little bit of cooking lesson. They're still in the outdoor, in the middle of nowhere. That's still an adventure. And we do that with seniors. But yes, we do from hiking, kayaking, whitewater rafting, and all type of active adventures that we call it. But we have camping for families that they are with teenagers or with kids. We call it family adventures or family holidays. It's still an adventure, all types. So we do cruising in the Galapagos, island hopping. We do all types, very technical, including, climbing to the summits of the volcanoes in Ecuador, to non-technical role and doing, just a city break.
I love that you brought that up, especially for this particular podcast, because we're the podcast for the adventure traveler. And as I discuss it with people, they often well, I'm not sure we do adventure. I'm like, well, are your clients just sitting on the beach drinking cocktails? They're like, no, we do other stuff. So I'm actually interviewing a gentleman here at some point that does dinosaur tours. They go out and do paleontology tours. So my definition of adventure, because I'm a balloon pilot, I've done the paragliding, paramotoring, some mountaineering stuff. But I also get just as excited sometimes by walking down a back alley and finding a food stall and going in there and eating something. I don't even know what it is, and I can't communicate with the person, but they're eating it. I'm going to eat it. And that's, for me, can be just as adventurous as anything. So as really the adventure traveler to me is somebody that's willing to get out of their comfort zone and is approaching things through curiosity. If you're willing to get out of your comfort zone and you're curious, as far as I'm concerned, you're an adventure traveler.
Correct. And that is the new definition of adventure. It has been discussed for many, many years, and we are part of Adventure Travel Trade Association, which brings together a big community of adventure tour operators or adventure travel in general. And they every year say, yeah, thanks God, now we're not thinking adventure, you have to be
you don't have to climb Kilimanjaro.
Risking your life. Actually, is the opposite, because we have the most prepared people, the most, rights in order to do either climbing or either, whitewater rafting. We have to have special permits, and very well experienced people, are taking care of it. So it gets much more serious. And that's very interesting, because when I go to my travel shows and they say, oh, we don't do adventure, I say we do adventure. We also do the other thing, but the other thing is very easy, because we need much more certifications than other regular tour operators than just for doing a multi-day trip, which we're only discovering, and we call it highlights of Ecuador. But Ecuador itself is an adventure since you arrived to Ecuador, right?
Absolutely.
It's amazing, because out of Quito, only in Quito we have all of this Sheraton and all of these kind of chains hotels. And then sometimes people say, no, I'm not used to, I don't really like to be in the chain hotels. Yeah, no problem. We'll put you in a boutique hotel. But guess what? They do a 10-day trip. Every other place, our towns are, the biggest one is maybe 200,000 people. But then we're not going to those towns. We're going to very remote areas where it's maybe not even 5,000 people. And the eco lodge or the hotel has such a personality. The owner is coming to talk to you, telling you your story. So I said, you don't imagine what you're going to see and meet. So you're going to be very away from the chain hotels for sure. No worries. At least, get your bonus that somebody speaks English when you get into any of the chain hotels in Quito. And that only happens in Quito, Guayaquil, which are the two larger cities, in Cuenca, where we have any of this infrastructure of large hotels. Every other place are eco lodges, are haciendas, or kind of like farms that have become lodges that we use, either hot springs places, homestays we use as well, and we use small hotels, local owned, trying to support our people. That's a part of our philosophy, and that's actually what's the tendency in adventure going, which I think is the travel for good, in my opinion.
No, I agree with you completely. We actually connected through ATTA. I've attended ATTA Summit in the past, and it's a great organization and a great opportunity. So I guess I'm getting a plug for them as well to any other tour operators that might be listening to this. But what you were just telling me brought up a question. A lot of the listeners do kind of the do-it-yourself adventure, as you can imagine. And for them, that might just be go to stay in Ecuador. They may not do an eco lodge. They may not fly out and spend time with the indigenous peoples. They may not go to Galapagos. And I just want to take just a second and just ask you this question. If someone was coming to Ecuador for the first time, didn't really speak a lot of English, and just wanted to spend a week in a town that they could get to relatively easy and just hang out and explore, what would be your choice?
Quito is excellent. Around Quito, you can go for a day out exploring, and then you can reach snow, covered volcanoes relatively easy. Places that I just went this morning, very nice and easy, and then have a beautiful hot springs area. You go everything is in within 60 to 100 to 90 kilometers away from Quito, which will be in between 40 to 70 miles out of Quito. Involves 2-hour driving, and then you can have snow, covered volcano. You can have hot springs in cloud forest upper mountain. You can have close contact with local people. Actually, we have our own projects of sustainability. We have a group of women near Otavalo. Otavalo is considered second largest handicraft market in South America, surrounded by local people in a valley close to kind of like lakes. Also, there is a place called Cotacachi, Leather Town. And then nearby this leather town is a lake where you can go there, go on a boat, go in the middle and see how bubbles are coming up because it's an active lake. It's an active volcano. It's like, people is like, are you serious? Really? Yes. And we are doing that as a tour. And then you return to Quito. Then you go, if you are more into the jungle type of like waterfalls, cloud forest, actually Mindo area, we try to tell people go to stay one night in the cloud forest. But if not, we still go in the morning, come back in the afternoon as a day adventure. And over there is all of this jungle type, warm weather, waterfalls, cable cars, biking, horsing, small areas for that. That area is actually one of the number one bird zones on Earth. It's always the most number of birds seen in a day. And we have all hummingbird feeders there. Everywhere you do, you stop for a coffee, 100 hummingbirds around you. Because then you step further, maybe lunch, then there's toucans and feeders again of hummingbirds. And then there's orchids. And then there is like concerts of frogs if you stay for a night. And it's everything there. It's also, 1 hour from Quito, 1.5 hours more or less. So Quito is perfect to discover that in 1 week. Other parts, I would say Cuenca. Cuenca involves take a flight or maybe a 6 hours drive down south. It has it's smaller than Quito, but its colonial town is beautiful. The same, 1 hour away, you have lakes in national parks. Then you have also some sort of warm area, discovering small villages, maybe doing weaving lessons. So either of these two cities, it will be my big recommendation to spend maybe 4 or 5 nights there, and then you have a lot to explore within city and just around.
And what I heard was, Quito, Cuenca as definite options with a lot of different things around.
Correct.
And my understanding is you can help if someone's spending, let's say they're spending a week in Quito and then they're going to go to Cuenca for 4 days or something like that. And they're kind of doing the do-it-yourself thing, but they want to get out and do an excursion. It sounds like you're doing day trips as well. Can you help them with that?
Absolutely. Yes, we do all types of services that involve kind of like, making any type of traveler easier. So we pick you up in the airport. That can be a service. And then we can tailor-made of taking different day trips in Quito, same in Cuenca. We can also help you trying to go from here to Cuenca, either by car or by flight. It's only around 25 minutes flight. Everything is closed in Ecuador, right? That's why in Ecuador, there is a say, that you can wake up in the morning, maybe by the coast. You can have breakfast in the coast. You can come drive in 3.5, 4 hours and maybe close to a snow-covered volcano, have your lunch, and then you can drive down to the Amazon and have dinner. So within 1 day, driving time, maybe it will be around 7 hours. However, you can experience going from sea level, coming up to 4,000 meters, and going again to maybe 300 meters above sea level in the Amazon. And then you will have, Ecuador in all kind of like different climate changes and everything, I would say, of its diversity. So yes, we do, answering your question, we do kind of like plan any type of a day tour or even a morning tour just in city, from any of these towns. Yes, we can do.
I'm curious, and wasn't planning to ask you this question, but I'm curious. Do you get a lot of tourists that travel there looking for kind of ceremonial, maybe they call it medicinal, spiritual type of experiences? I guess I should say it's out. I don't know a lot about it. It's outside of my area of expertise for sure, but I've got an opportunity to ask you that. And how has that impacted tourism to Ecuador? Do you have any thoughts on that, or?
It's coming more and more. We haven't had the opportunity of doing it, I would say. However, we know where to do it. And it all depends, I would say, because, when you go, I personally have, friends of mine, which are the places that we visit, the families that we visit in the Amazon, especially offering this ayahuasca that is maybe the most known worldwide, which they do rituals. And of course, a lot of people comes trying to find answers to a lot of stuff, right? However, from the point of view of the local people, is not trying to find answers. It's part of their culture. And it's a very, very religious thing. And it can be not well managed. It can be a little, I would say, for the person that tries at once, or they want to do it for all types of purposes, or even like just recreational, it can be a crash, because it is a very strong, medicine, because for our local people it's medicine. However, it has its hallucinogenic effect is very high. So my recommendation is trying to do with people that do it with all of the I would say, the best way, because there is no certification, right, for that. It's just finding the place, but the plant itself is there, right? We have lots of plants that are highly hallucinogenic. However, they are there in our backyards. It's like you can just go and make a tea and do it yourself. The idea is who brings you into that. So
that's what I was going to ask. Are there
the Amazon? We have a place that I think we have done it once or twice. By this shaman, it's a little bit. They want to do it a real spiritual thing. They don't want to do a show. So we might not have offering for this yet. However, I know there is few areas in Ecuador that they are doing it. That in Peru is more common, I would say. Actually, there are tours that are taking you to have this type of ceremonies.
Yeah, are there legal implications for a tourist traveling to Ecuador to do ayahuasca or anything like that they should know?
No. There is no law still, because all of these are considered medicine for our local people, and they are rituals for our local people, because it's part of their kind of like their life, right? It's the only way they find answers, because of all of our traditional medicine. That's the way it is. Actually, I have had the opportunity myself, and I can share this, to talk to many of them. Some of them don't even speak Spanish. And not only here in Ecuador, in other parts of South America, and they all use something, and everything is very, very religious and spiritual for them. So sometimes they don't want to really share. So it comes to the point that they want to share, and then it becomes some sort of like, a little bit more commercial. And of course, they're open to share that. It's not that easy to understand how they really, go through that process, because before they are become, known shamans, because there's no certifications. They're just known shamans in the area, and the more they help people, because they are considered the doctors of their community, the better, right? So it's a little bit the information behind the scenes over there. It's kind of like they want to keep it very cultural, especially the people I have met. And that's my respect as well for it.
No, yeah, I certainly appreciate that. And if it was something I was inclined to do, I wouldn't want to just have that commercialized experience. I'm more interested in the culture and the reasoning and the ceremony part of it. Honestly, I probably would not, I probably would want to be mentally aware of the whole thing so I could watch maybe just and take it all in. I don't want to be tripped out the whole time. I don't know why we went this direction on this call. Maybe we'll edit this out later. I don't know. But anyway, I appreciate you sharing that with me because it's just something that I know some people are interested in when they're traveling to that part of the world. If there was, I want to touch on Galapagos real quick. If there's one thing that you think that visitors should know about the Galapagos that would surprise them, what would that, or I'm not sure how to ask that question, but what's the one thing you think people should know about the Galapagos that they might not be aware of until they show up?
Wow, this is a hard question. I would say, how can I put that? I would say that we can see how evolution and adaptation gets shape within a human life, because it's happening with some of the, in some of the finches. It is happening, and it is happening also with one iguana. We have marine iguanas, which is actually the only iguana that, dives underwater. And it has come in a hybrid that eventually will become a species its own. And it's called the pink iguana, the fourth subspecies, they call it. Mm-hmm. It may be in human life. That's incredible for all of the biologists.
Wow.
Because that's just the Galapagos. So, and how can I put it? Like, if you have seen Jurassic Park movie, it's like going into a real, but of course not these dinosaurs, but all of this wildlife close by, and these gigantic, lizards or iguanas that looks like dragons very close by with weird shapes. And
yeah. Sorry. I asked that question, and thank you for sharing. A great response. I asked that question because sometimes there's places out there that get a lot of press, and people have this preconceived idea of what that's going to look like, and then they get there and they realize it's either way more than they expected, and they just overwhelmed. It's like, wow, this is so much better than I expected, or there's, oh wow, it's much smaller than I expected. There's some famous landmarks in different places of the world, and people go there and they usually either like, wow, it's bigger than I thought, or it's smaller than I thought. So I wondered about with Galapagos, when people go there, are they generally, is it like more than they thought, or what's the most common kind of response?
I would say the expectation is always above of what people think, because there is no such a places, that allows you wildlife, like in a zoo, like it's just around you really. And they come sea lions when you're doing snorkeling, trying to play with you. And it is just incredible. And they're small islands. The largest town is only around 20,000 people, and the smallest is 200 people. And we do adventure cruising there because it's only 16 people cruises and sailing around the islands. The most you see is wildlife. You don't get that much contact with, Western world, or cities or towns. So it's a wildlife experience, I would say, plus a little bit of local people over there, which actually is an extra add-on. Adventure Journeys does most of their trips land-based because wildlife is guaranteed, and then you also get to kind of like get in contact with the local people, which they also have a lot to say.
Very, very cool. And probably my last question is about food. What's the one dish that everybody should try when they visit Ecuador?
It's it happens that is also my favorite dish.
I good.
And the way I'm gonna say it is like the one dish that, or what the dish that stands out for all Ecuadorians, no matter where they come from, because remember I told you we are very diverse with different climates and weathers, and of course different products grow. So if you ask somebody in the coast, they might ask you something related with sea. If you ask somebody in the Amazon, they might ask you something related with manioc or yuca. If you ask somebody in the mountains like myself, they might ask you something related with potatoes, corn. But there's one dish that goes all around Ecuador, which is called encebollado, which is normally known by everyone as a morning soup. It's a soup, with albacore, with kind of tuna fish. Okay. And is normally served with yuca, which is this type of kind of like potato or manioc, they call it. And normally is served with either popcorn, corn, or some rice. Every Ecuadorian loves it. However, it's not the most known by tourists. Tourists maybe have the number one that we recommend is guinea pig. And
yeah, I think
in the Highlands, and it's the potato soup. Everyone wants that recipe. Every tourist. I have guided in my own life close to 10,000 clients, in my life as a.
Everybody wants guinea pig.
They want the potato soup that is served all around the mountains, which is based on potato, cheese, and avocado.
Okay. And that soup is called?
Potato soup. It's called locro. Locro de papas. Locro is a soup of potatoes.
Okay. All right. Good. Well, I'm going to have that when I come. I'm not sure. The guinea pig is called cuy, right? Is that?
Cuy, yeah, the correct. Yeah. It's called cuy.
Yeah.
But they are not fed here. Just so you know. It's funny because I used to do, okay, we're going to eat fluffy now. I'm just everyone names it, their guinea pigs Fluffy or Carolina or something like this. And I was like,
yeah, I had guinea pigs when I was a kid. I think a lot of people did. So it's,
but
I also,
for our native people, that's maybe once or twice a meal in a year. It's a very,
okay.
Either for a special party, which is normally summer solstice, not necessarily Christmas or stuff, and maybe a wedding, a baptizing, or something like this.
Okay, kind of a special thing. Well, very cool. You shared so much. I know I could come back and probably record 3 or 4 more interviews with you. And we chatted for quite a while. So I thank you so much for sharing all that wonderful information about, you're obviously very, very passionate. For those listening, they don't get to see your face, but I know that they can hear it in your voice, and just really appreciate you having you come on. You did mention, we're going to put a link in the show notes to make sure that people are able to connect with you and your team. And, you guys had assured me that if anybody clicked through on that link and came into you guys, make sure you took good care of them and give them the big world made small experience and help make their world just a little bit smaller. So thank you so much for that. And is there anything else you'd like to share before we log off?
Well, for all of the listeners, we can't wait to have you here in Ecuador. It is really this place that everyone falls in love. And if you're not having longer time for visiting, Ecuador is being split in regions, right? The Galapagos itself is a week. So if you are not having a lot of time for vacations, I will say come twice. Explore the Galapagos once, very well, nicely done, and then come second time and explore maybe the jungles and the mountains.
Or just stay a few weeks, right?
Repeated customers, and they love it. Yes, for sure. That I can say. And yes, we're ready to show you our beautiful home. This is our home.
Well, I've gotten to know your team, and they just do a great job. And I know that anybody that comes to visit you is going to have a great time, and look forward to meeting you in person myself when I make my first trip to Ecuador. So I will see you there. Henry, thank you so much. Really appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you too.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks for the invitation.
I trust you enjoyed listening to the conversation as much as I enjoyed recording it. If you're enjoying the Big World Made Small podcast, please take a moment to tell the algorithm by subscribing and posting a review so that others can benefit as well. I also invite you to take a quick trip over to bigworldmadesmall.com and join our private adventure travel community to receive new episode notifications, special access to our guest experts, and perhaps even some exclusive partner offers that we haven't discussed on the podcast. I'll publish another episode soon. Until then, keep exploring. It's the best way to make a big world feel just a bit smaller.